In this video I'll continue with number 86, which again we have called the limit definition of the derivative. This is sometimes also called a difference quotient. So for number 86, again I'll start with the formula. The more you write the formula, the easier it will be to memorize it. So we have the limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x minus f of x all over delta x. Our f of x this time is square root of x. So limit as delta x approaches 0, f of x plus delta x is just 1 over square root of x plus delta x. Then minus f of x, and that's just 1 over square root of x, all divided by delta x. Now, how will we deal with this? Here we have both radicals and fractions. So, what should we do? Should we treat it first as a fraction or first as a radical? So, should we simplify the fractions or should we multiply by conjugates? And in this particular case, multiplying by conjugates is not going to be as helpful as first simplifying those fractions. So I would simplify the fraction first, that is multiplying top and bottom by the least common denominator of the fraction expression in the numerator, and then we're going to use conjugates. So the least common denominator of the fractional expression in the numerator is square root of x times square root of x plus delta x. And we're going to multiply top and bottom by that. And in our numerator, we have limit as delta x approaches 0. When we distribute the square root of x times square root of x plus delta x to both of those terms, or both of those expressions in the numerator, we're first going to get square root of x minus square root of x plus delta x. And that's over delta x times the square root of x times the square root of x plus delta x. Now, that's a bit simpler there. However, it's still very complicated. And now we're going to need to multiply by the conjugate. And that would be square root of x plus square root of x plus delta x over the same thing. And our denominator is becoming increasingly complicated. But our numerator is just going to be first term squared minus second term squared, or x minus the quantity x plus delta x. And that denominator has now become delta x times square root of x times square root of x plus delta x times the quantity square root of x plus square root of x plus delta x. Now we're ready to rumble here. The numerator is going to simplify because the x's will zero out, and I'll end up with a negative delta x in the numerator that will then cancel with the delta x in the denominator. Hopefully you can see that. I'm kind of running out of space here. So what would happen then is we're going to end up with a negative 1 in the numerator, and then square root of x times square root of x plus delta x times the quantity square root of x plus square root of delta x in the denominator. But that's going to simplify a lot, because at this point we can set all the delta x's to 0, and we'll have negative 1 over square root of x just times square root of x, because that delta x became 0. And then we're going to have times the quantity square root of x plus square root of x. And we're almost done with this. There's no more delta x's, so I don't need the limit anymore. I still have negative 1 in the numerator. Square root of x times square root of x is just x. Then square root of x plus square root of x is 2 square root of x. And so that would become negative 1 over 2x square root of x. Or if we wrote the x's as rational exponents, we would have negative 1 over 2 times x to the 3/2 power. And that will do it for 86.